Miner 3 times. And it's a maimer about tshuva, but it's also a maimer about the shofar gadol. Meaning, before Mashiach comes, we didn't do tshuva, but the tshuva is somehow connected to a shofar which the Eibishter is blowing. And it's yitoka meyatzmei, whatever that means, that whole fancy thing about the shofar blowing itself, as we discussed at length. So we start Peidik Chav Ches. Okay, we start Peidik Chav Ches. B'maimer hanal meduber. In the Maimer which we're talking about, the Friedrich Rebbe discusses oidoi shtei nevues, about 2 prophecies, oidoi shnei in yodam shel shofar, 2 different concepts of a shofar, sheyiyu ba'achris hayomim, that are going to happen at the end of time. The Friedrich Rebbe predicts that there's going to be a shofar, but he connects the shofar to 2 periods of time. Okay, the first is in the beginning of the coming of Mashiach, and the second one is later. That number 1, Bimei HaGolos HaAchareinim, in the final days of Golos, Kaidem Eschalta V'Yolah, before the Yula history begins. Sha'arei Siyum HaGolos, the end of Golos. Ula'acharei HaGeula, the Kibbutz Golos, then there's going to be the redemption. And then Yidden are going to be gathered together. Tihya the Rakai, the Mashiach, the King of Mashiach is going to do it. Kipsag Din, Bodar Shal Rambam Yad HaChazok, the Rambam Paskins. And the Rebbe would get very upset when people would talk about the Zionist state as being as Chalta the Geula. Mashiach brings the Geula. But there's things that happen before Mashiach. Is preparation for the true and whole and perfect and peaceful Geula. Yushnei and Yodam Shofar, there's 2 concepts of Shofar. 2 levels, 2 stages of Shofar. Ubehegdim. Before we start talking about 2 stages of shofar, let's explain what shofar means in Avodah. What is the concept of the shofar? What is the meaning of the shofar in human experience? What does the shofar do for you? Right? And of course you may say nothing, and I wouldn't argue with you. But on the other hand, if you've never heard the shofar and suddenly somebody blows the shofar, you stop. Whoa! Not because it's a beautiful sound, but because it's a provoking sound. The shofar is a hallowed sound. It makes you think, because it starts coming crying. Here's an awakening and a shake that's very strong. Intellectually, you may not even understand why, but when you hear a shofar, it gives you a shake. As the pasuk says, when the shofar is blown in the city, people are not going to shake. The shofar is very moving. And again, it's not moving because it's melodious. There are beautiful pieces of music that move you, but every piece of music that moves you has an order, has a seder to it. The shofar is a raw cry, and it has a tendency to move. Mashiach is going to come. The word is going to change fundamentally. And in a core way, not just for Jews, also by Goyim Lahavlo. Shari'as, when the Mashiach comes, with the realization of the prophecy that not only all Yidden will be from, but Lahavlo Goyim are going to be from. The whole world is going to be corrected by the kingship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even such, Shafilu Oz, even when Mashiach makes his appearance, are going to be considered strangers, aliens. Are going to stand ready to shepherd the sheep of the Jewish people. So Mashiach means a change in the world that's so radical that not only is every Yid from, which is a big enough change in itself, but every Goy is from. Naturally, if Mashiach means a world where, like I tell you in my classes, in my Q&A classes, that God wins, you see that the world belongs to Hashem because we actually listen to him, Yidden and Goyim. The preparation for Mashiach has to be in that vein. Especially Jewish people, that since Etzlam Yikoy Mayid, by Yidden it says, V'atam teluktu le'echad echad b'nei Yisrael. You know the difference between Jews and non-Jews is? Jews, they're able to collect us one at a time, by the hand. Non-Jews, he creates the spirit in the world and all of them follow. By Yidden, echad echad. Every Yid is collected by the Eibush individually. U'kedivrei Rashi. As Rashi says on that pasuk, Shehu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Atzmei, the Eibush himself, Tzarech liyas echid b'yadav mamish, is going to take by the hand every Yid mamish, each one of us as individuals, be mekayim from his place. So Mashiach is going to affect the whole world. everybody is going to come to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but by Yidden it's going to be in an acute state. So therefore, something has to happen before to allow Mashiach to have this impact. Chavre, Mashiach's a person. Did you hear me? Mashiach's a bas of Adam. Now, he's a person like the Rebbe is a person. Yeah, is the Rebbe a person? Yes, he had a goof, he had arms, he had legs, he ate, he slept, he wore clothing. Yeah, I need some tissues. In the room, tissues in the room? Oh, perfect. Yeah, but on the other hand, the Rebbe is Ish Elakim, yeah? Mashiach is the greatest Ish Elakim of all the Ish Elakim. Mashiach is Yechida, higher, but he's a person. And this man is going to make the whole world follow him. That's kind of awesome. And not follow him into an amusement park to have fun. Follow him to being real people who live for values and purpose. The purpose of life is not to retire early and to have fun. The purpose of life is to serve, to have a meaningful life, to maximize what it means to be in the image of God. That's a big challenge. Mashiach is going to have to teach not just Yidden this idea, but he's going to have to teach Goyim this idea. So before Mashiach comes, the stage has to be set for this to be able to happen after Mashiach comes. I'm just curious, are all of your friends going to do the same thing or just you?
I'm sorry.
I'm asking a question, I didn't get an answer.
No, everyone doing it.
Oh, it's just you. Okay, good.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. So the Rebbe says, Hachanazu Nasis, what happened before Mashiach? For Mashiach to be able to have the impact that he must have, and the answer is, Shnei Yonim Shel Shefer. There's going to be two Shefers before Mashiach. Before Mashiach. That they're going to shake the world in the kind of way that it's going to give a message to humanity that when Mashiach makes his appearance. And Mashiach, again, is a boss of Adam. He's a human being with incredible powers, but he's a human being who's going to change the entire world. His ability to bring everybody to a place of what it means to be a human being. Human beings don't live for nice clothes and good food and good cars. Human beings live to use their minds and to refine their hearts and to maximize their humanity. And yet, one of the simplest aspects of the maximization of humanity is being good to other people. But then there's much higher ideas. Mashiach's going to have to affect all of this. What creates the stage in which Mashiach makes his appearance? Two shefers. Shnei Yonim Shel Shefer, two concepts of shefer, which Rebbe translates means me'urois, events that are happening in the world that are miza'azim, that shake up. Sheyazazu as ha'olam bechlal, as b'nei Yisrael b'flat, that shake up the world as a whole, and the Jewish people in specific. Lahocha me'esim l'gul, to prepare for Mashiach. Rebbe is saying there's going to be happenings in the world. Things are going to happen. And those happenings are going to be the Shefer Gadol. And there's two of them. And those two happenings, those two Shefer Gadol, changed the world enough for Mashiach to then come along and to have the hashpah that he's going to have. And he continues. Shtei hanavuos heim, these two prophecies, are the shtei tkufos shonos, about two separate periods that are both be'inyan ha'achana l'geula, the preparatory stages of Mashiach, are, one is Nevuah Zechariah, V'adeshem elikim b'shefer yitaka v'holach b'sareis tema. Nevuah Zechariah lived much later than Yeshaya, that the Eibush is going to blow a shefer, and he's going to go in the storms of Tema. And Nevuah Yeshaya, the Nevuah of Yeshaya, who lived much earlier, which is the one that our Maimon is based on. At the time of Mashiach, there's going to be a Shefer Gadol which is going to sound itself. Those who are lost in the goals of Chassidus and in the goals of Anias are going to come. So there's two Nevi'as. Zechariah is one of the last Nevi'as. Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. So Zechariah is the second to the last Nevi. He's going to say the Nevuah of Vadeshem Elikim B'Shefer Yitaka, and Yeshaya, who lived 100 years before the Churban, is the other one. So the Rebbe says like this: Zechariah lived later, Yeshaya lived earlier, but Zechariah is prophesizing about the earlier Shefer, and Yeshaya is prophesizing about the later Shefer. But bear in mind, both these Shefers are before Mashiach, and the Rebbe is defining the Shefers as happenings in the world. Zechariah niba oidis tkufa koidemes. Zechariah prophesies about an earlier sound. There's going to be a shefer. Hakosher im. Turn to page 214, please. Milchamoy soyarais. Storming wars. Bein umas ha'oil amongst the non-Jews. Sheyigmru ma'apechet, which is going to cause revolution. Besidrei ha'oil ma'kavoim, in the order of the world which has been fixed. And included in that is v'chevlei Mashiach neiroyim rachmana litzlan etel b'nei Yisrael. It's going to include for the Yidden birth pangs of Mashiach. Does anybody know what the meaning of birth pangs of Mashiach means? Huh? I told you. What does birth pangs of Mashiach mean? What does it mean?
Like the end is the worst.
What does birth pangs of Mashiach mean?
This is the most painful time.
Mashiach has to be born to a mother. Yeah? And everybody knows how painful birth is. Now, for some women, the pregnancy is easier, the birth is easier. For some people, the pregnancy, the birth is harder. The birth of Mashiach is going to be the most painful birth ever. Chavlei Mashiach means Chavlei Leidas Mashiach. Or the Tzirei Leidas, the pain of the birthing of Mashiach. The Mittler Rebbe explains at length what this means. He brings a chazal. That there's an animal called an oifer. It's an animal, it's a kind of a deer that cannot have a baby. Its rechem is too tight, it doesn't have enough space. So when it has to deliver a baby, it has terrible, terrible yisurim because the baby cannot be born. And the special darkoin, a special scorpion, stings it. And the sting either numbs it or stretches it, and the baby is able to be delivered. That is a mashal for the Chavlei Mashiach. Chavlei Mashiach means Chavlei Leidas Mashiach. Mashiach has to be born. This is not a biological thing, it's a spiritual thing. But the birthing of Mashiach is extremely painful. And it plays out in Yiddish Chassidus in the world. It plays out in Yiddish Chassidus in the world. Zechariah predicts the Shofar Gadol Mashiach, which is going to change the geopolitical situation, and it includes terrible suffering for the Jewish people. You see where the Rebbe's going, Kinderlach? You see where the Rebbe's going? You see where he's going? But he's not going to let you guess. He's going to spell it out. If the clock will go slow enough and we'll read fast enough, we'll get to it. Ilu Yeshaya, as opposed to Yeshaya. Niba oidis kufa shalayachare. This is a later period. Shatir kreva yesel lebiyas HaMashiach. That after we go through the pain of the Chavlei Mashiach, there's another Shofar Gadol, which is tshuva. Ha, you hear? You're listening. Ziyazua chazak etel b'nei Yisrael. A great shake amongst Jewish people. Afilu adachayim b'yosef. Even those who are the farthest away. They're moving the ruchni in the spiritual sense. Sheyizdazu, they're going to be shaken. V'yis'ayru, they're going to be awakened. Aidei kiriyas hakiruv ha'avohis, through a call of closeness that is fatherly. Shashem yizbarach kedel ibnei Yisrael. Hashem called the Jewish people. Shetachliso lifo, the point of that call is to effect ziyazua, a shake. Gam etel evde beretz asher beredocha beretz, even Jews who are lost in the gals of ruchnius. And the Yidden lost the goals of Hashidus, and Yidden lost the goals of Aniyah. So you understand, the first shofar is Gehenim, right? I don't want to say it in English. I have to. It's a dirty word when you say it in English, yeah. But on occasion you have no choice. But the first shofar gadol has to do with tzadus. The second shofar gadol has to do with tshuva, and they both happen before Mashiach, and they happen successively. First, the Shofar Gadol, which changes the entire geopolitical situation. The whole world changes. And included in those changes is Chavlei Leidas Mashiach Chivre. The Rebbe Rayatz never said about the Second World War that it's Geg Magid. But he said about the Second World War that's Chavlei Mashiach. What we're discussing here. Which is how the Sichi goes. The first Shofar Gadol is this pain and the suffering of Yidden as the whole world is turning upside down. Which is the first sounding of the shofar, steadying the stage of the Mashiach's coming. And the second is calling Yidden to truth. Says the Rebbe Shehem, that these two things, of Asher and Mitzrayim, are Beis Eifanim Bashpa, built to the Tzur Shalagos of Bnei Yisrael. There's two ways Golos wears on Jewish people. A, it beats them up. B, it puts them to sleep for materialism, right? The Golos of Aniyas didn't suffer materially. Anti-Semitism, poverty, fear. The worst thing to fear is fear, really. Whether it's real or imaginary. And Yidden have been afraid. And it wears them out. It's an effect of those. And then you have the Golos of America, where everyone's so nice to us, and millions of Jews are marrying out as we speak. It's gefährlich. But no one's in pain. It's such a wonderful life. We're falling asleep in Golos. This is called Mitzrayim, is the pain and the suffering. And Ashur is the wealth and the numbness. Golos, shenikras b'shem Ashur, the exile called Ashur, Lashon Oisher. We're lucky. Shazui Golos b'medinis, it's exile in those lands. Shabihem yesh chayfish and we have freedom and we have comfort. K'fi shahoyz anhaga be'eretz Ashur, as it was in the land of Ashur 3,000 years ago. Uketitzom is that the result of this is yesh ke'elu, some Jews are ne'evodim rachmanan litzlan mi Yehudim v'yadus. Jews are lost to Jewish people and to Judaism biglal ashikia beluxus, because we're so immersed in luxuries, v'taivis and weaknesses and lust. We push it no away our neshama. If a person lives a frum life but doesn't miss any opportunity to enjoy the Gashmizdika world, will become nom to ruchnius. They can't be on the same plate. You can only be passionate about one of those two. If you want to be passionate about God, you can't be that passionate about Gashmias. But if you want everything in America to be perfect, as they say in Lashon Medina, perfect house, perfect car, perfect husband, perfect kids. But all of that perfection is how it looks, not what it is. That perfection is at the cost of your neshama. It falls asleep. That's called Golos of Chassidus. And then, of course, Golos shenikras b'shem Mitzrayim, an exile called Egypt, shemisamelas asasevel v'hatzad, it symbolizes the suffering and the pain. Shel shibat hagolos, of the slavery in Golos, k'fi shehoyz anhaga be'et Mitzrayim k'pshut, as it was when we lived in Mitzrayim, literally. Uketitzom mizeh, and from this also, yesh ke'elu shenidochem rachmana litzlan mi Yehudim v'yadus, the Jews were lost to Jews in Judaism, like in Soviet Russia. And I don't know how to break this to you. The Soviet Russia no longer exists. Soviet Russia died 35 years ago. I watched it die. I was alive and well. I remember it. And at the time, it was so unbelievable that the Soviet Union would go away. The Soviet Union was like the moon. My father had first cousins in Russia. First cousins. So when I bring it up at the table, my kids say, so did Tati speak to them? Did your father speak to them? Never. If a first cousin talked to him, you couldn't make a phone call. It was dangerous. We used to send them peklach through third parties. Same planet Earth. Same globus. And it's gone. But that was tzadis. To be a fruma yid, you have to risk your life every day. To be Shem Shabbos, Echel Kosher, and all the rest. So the Rebbe says there's two ways Golos wears out a yid. And the Koil Shofar, the second side of the Shofar, wakes Yidden up to Tshuva from both of those. Okay? Says the Rebbe, Ziyazua, it's a shake. Sheyifel, which affect bittel mitziyusam, the bittel of the mitzias of the Jew. And the Rebbe says in Yiddish, Ziyich faderlident, one should get lost. Kadesh Adova Yavel Debiti Bekach, it's going to ultimately translate into Tshuva. V'yishtachol ad Hashem ba'arakedesh b'shlayim, Yidden come to Beis Hamikdash Yerushalayim, they bow down. And he translates in Yiddish, those who don't speak Hebrew. His masrus amukol HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a deep dedication to the Eibishter, L'kayim mitzvahs, to keep his mitzvahs, mitech Yiddish Shemayim Shlema, with complete Yiddish Hashem, ad l'kiyim Yid, until the physical event of Yishtachol B'Yishtachol to come to literally to Beis HaMikdash. Shechol b'nei Yisrael yiglu me'agos. We're going to literally go out of Gos and come to Eretz Yisrael. And by day Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the help of Mashiach, we're going to come to Harakedesh, to the standing Beis Hamikdash. I want you to know that the Rambam holds that the Beis Hamikdash is built before all Yidden come to Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam holds that Kibbutz Goli is collecting Yidden from the exile happens after the Beis Hamikdash is built in Yerushalayim. As they pass on the Rambam. So there's two shofars. In a sentence, the first shofar is Yiddish Atzaras, and the second shofar is waking up Yiddish Tshuva. That's how the Rebbe is playing it out, okay? The first shofar is from Zechariah, who lived later, and the second shofar is from Yeshaya, who lived earlier, but that's how the Nevi'im go. You know, when they predict the future, they don't necessarily see as far into the future. U'b'chein, bottom of 2:14. If you've been sleeping, wake up now, okay? Now goes the Nimshal. As they say it in American, this part is interesting, okay? U'b'chein, ha'atkufa rishona, the first period, which is the first sounding of the shofar. Shabbat Hiskayim and Nevuah Zechariah, which satisfied the prophecy of Zechariah, which he called Ma'apeches B'Sidra Eilam, the whole geopolitical situation, the entire map gets rewritten. And it includes, top of page 214, Chevle Mashiach Leroyim Rachmona Litzlan Eitzel Bnei Yisrael, the worst kind of suffering for Jews. Now go back to the bottom of the page. He is Hatkufa Shal Melchemes Ha'elam Harishayna, the period of the First World War, but more importantly, Melchemes Ha'elam Hashniya. The Rebbe says World War I and World War II is the first shayfer. Because those two worlds did two things. Number one, the whole world was shaken by tumultuous wars. And more importantly than that, girls, you must understand, the world before World War I had one map. The world after World War II has a totally different map. The whole geopolitical structure and balance changed. It became much more complicated. And in many ways it became much more fair. But it opened up new problems. And of course, at the center of all the problems, whenever something goes wrong in the world, anybody know whose fault it is? Anybody know what the world is? The Jews. The Jews, as they say in German. The Jews. They made Eretz Oi, the ganze Welt geht voneinander. I'm thinking about it. The whole Europe is being burdened down by Muslims. If not for Eretz Yisrael, they would kick every Muslim out of Europe. But because of Eretz Yisrael, Europe is going to fall because they have to be nice to the Muslims because they hate the Jews. And nobody even sees that the Eibush is playing his dominoes. Europe is falling because it's not standing up to the Arab minority, which is one day going to be an Arab majority. And they're going to make Europe Arabia. Why? Because since Eretz Yisrael is a bad country, so you love the Arabs. Yeah. You see how the Eibush is playing musical chairs. If you just see a little bit objectively, you see what's going on. But the World War I and World War II were terrible wars. I mean, between the two wars, probably 90 million people were killed. You know, that's a lot of people. An awful lot of people. But the whole map changed. The whole world changed. The entire definition of the world. Imperialism went away. Britain used to have an empire. Britain has an island. French used to have an empire. Okay, the Germans were a little bit late. The Italians had an empire. Even America had a shtickle empire. They're all gone. Every country is independent, which is a good thing. It's a new world. But those two world wars, which changed the map of the world, also caused so much Jewish tzadis, we have no idea, right? Ubnei Yisrael sovlu chevle Mashiach koshen b'yes. As far as Yidden are concerned, the Yidden never suffered like they suffered in the time during and between the First and Second World War. So the Rebbe says both of those words are the first shofar. You're listening? Top of 215 now. Okay, I got your attention, right? The Rebbe's talking stuff that's interesting to you. Yeah, Nev Shabbat doesn't enjoy it. Well, it's always wonderful to talk about bad things that happened in the past. You know, they're happening now. Nish does very good. More particularly. Are you listening?
Yeah.
The First World War started. Why? Anybody know? Be'ikvas harigas adam echad. One man was killed. His name was Ferdinand, right? He was the crown prince to Franz Joseph, because Franz Joseph didn't have any children. And that stupid event, sparked the World War. Nobody, they were always saying the war would last 3 months. It lasted 5 years. And the result of this began a war. It encompassed and inflamed, it engulfed the entire world. Now, the Second World War. Now here you're going to get the Rebbe's position on Hitler, okay? You want to know what Hitler was? Listen carefully. Through a human being, he was fit for nothing. There was nothing outstanding about this guy. He wasn't smart, he wasn't talented, he wasn't gifted, he wasn't kind, he was nothing. He was nuts. Mitzias shelhed, a form of nothing. And the Rebbe says in Yiddish, agonish, a nobody. Any way you slice it, Hitler was a dunce. All the people who were afraid of him were smarter than he was. He was a nobody. When he started out, he didn't even have chutzpah. When he started out, he was very tenuous. He was very afraid. You know, in 1935, they went into Alsace and Lorraine, which were two provinces which the French took back from the Germans. after the First World War. The Germans took it from the French in the War of 1870, and then the French took it back from the Germans after World War One. And Hitler occupied the Rhineland. No, it was the Rhineland, not the Rhineland. But he gave a secret order that if French would shoot one bullet, they should withdraw. The French didn't shoot a bullet. They occupied the Rhineland, finished. But he became bolder as time went on. When he started to have successes, he started to believe that he's Superman. And he wasn't Superman, he was super idiot. And the German nation, 60 million of the smartest people on earth, Germans are not fools, followed him like sheep. As we know his history was that he was not only a dumb idiot, he was a frightful dumb idiot. He was a frightener. But his successes emboldened him. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says, not 60 million Germans, but 80 million Germans. In that country which accepted his leadership, absolutely. And as a result, the world in general, that everybody knew with certitude, he knew, he wanted and he intended to swallow up the whole world. His yoru lots and Asa, they were afraid to stop him. He was a nothing and a no one. And the whole Germany followed him like sheep, and the whole world was afraid of him. They tried to appease him. And that created the Second World War. So the Rebbe says both of these events are the most stupid reasons for wars. And yet they created the largest wars. Why? There's no nice way to say this, people, so I'm just going to say it straight. Because this is the sound of the Shevet HaMashiach. This kind of revolution, this kind of change, wasn't just symptomatic of what was happening on the ground. It was symptomatic of the cosmic purpose of the world, of the creation. B'shtei milchames elu, these two wars, hurad ha'olam kulei, the entire world was shaken up. B'sa'ares, when you go out, you're going to take a chair, and you're going to sit out to the door on a chair, and you're going to tell your friends, they cannot come in here until my class is finished. It's going to become your job, okay? And I happen to know your name, so you better follow my instructions. Hurad ha'olam, the last girl who came in, I asked her if she's the last one coming in. She assured me no one else is coming in.
We're in our class.
I don't care, but they can't disturb me. This is my class now. And I can get angry, you know that. I have a short fuse. That's my daughter. Okay. Okay. Listen. B'shtei milchames elu, these two world wars, hurad ha'olam kulei b'saras milchaman eros, the entire world was shaken up with the storm of awesome wars. You listening? The causes for these wars, it makes no sense. World War I should never have happened. Never. And World War II was really a continuation of World War I. Ella, the only explanation for how World War I became what it became. And World War II became what it became. This is the pasuk in Mishlei. The heart of kings is in the hand of God, and He leads them any way He wishes. This was the first shofar. This was the Eibishter shofar. Yitaka v'holach b'sadei steiman. He blew a shofar which created a sa'ara. You know what a sa'ara means? A storm. Se'eres milchames, a storm of war. She'eridu es ha'olam, that shook up the world. Ve'echinu, and in shaking up the world, they prepared the world. B'midah mesayemes, to a certain extent, l'shinurim, to the kind of changes sheyiyu b'geula idei Mashiach, which would happen to go to Mashiach's Tzedkenu. I'm going to give you an example. You must understand, I grew up in Lubavitch, okay? I'm born, bred, brainwashed, and proud of it, okay? The Rebbe hated the United Nations, He hated the United Nations because the United Nations is a political body. The United Nations hates Israel. It has to hate Israel. Why? Because there's one Jewish country, there's so many Christian countries, and so many Muslim countries, and so many Buddhist countries. The Jews don't stand a chance if one man, one vote. But in 1992, 1 month for the stroke, the Rebbe started to praise the United Nations. Because as nuts as the United Nations is, and as political as the United Nations is, the United Nations is about peace. That's what it's about. Now, is it perfect? It's so far from perfect, it's pathetic. But it's better than without the UN. After the First World War, the American president, whose name was Wilson, wanted to make a League of Nations. If that League of Nations had the success that the United Nations would have after the Second World War, there wouldn't have been a Second World War. America didn't join the League had no power, the League fell apart, and then the Second World War happened. So the UN is not a wonderful thing, but it's not a bad thing. On balance, it's a very good thing. The UN has helped, it feeds hungry people. It heals sick people in the darkest parts of the world. And before the UN, no one even knew they existed, let alone cared about them. So it's a gullus version of a good thing. It's just one example of how the world has changed. I mean, if you wanted to put it on balance, girls, this is not hard for you to understand. This is hard for me to understand. Before World War I, the world did not think war was a bad thing. Before World War I, if you were strong enough and politically savvy enough, you took over another country. Wow, he's a cheverman. He conquered another country. After World War II, the whole world came to the conclusion war is a terrible thing. Now, how stupid is that? But that's the historic fact. The two world wars taught the world, to use a cliche line, to be afraid of itself. Don't trust you. You're going to end up in a war. You can destroy the world. That's a good thing. All of these changes are not relating to Yidden, they're relating to the world. But it took this kind of conflagration, it took this kind of storm, as the Rebbe is calling it, to enlighten the world with these attitudes. You understand? Unfortunately, the amount of Jewish blood that was spilled it's historic. It's never happened before. Now we continue. Va'atkufa shniya, middle of page 215, yes? Va'atkufa shniya hischila. The second period started. You're listening, kinderlach, listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe speak. B'muroyis shalakayitz ha'acharayin be'eretz Yisrael. The events that happened last summer in Eretz Yisrael, 1967, kinderlach is, how many years ago? It's 58 years ago. The Rebbe has the 6-day war is the beginning of the second shofar. The Rebbe puts a date on it. The first shofar of Mashiach, which is the shofar that's connected to turning the world upside down, and an incredible pain for the Jewish people. It's the pain of the birthing of the neshama Mashiach Tzidkenu, is World War I and World War II. And the Rebbe explained it by showing you how irrational those wars were, and they happened because the Eibishter wanted them to happen. And now, of course, the liberals have to come along saying the Eibishter is a bad Eibishter, he caused all this death. And it's hard to explain, man. But you don't want to try to figure the Eibishter out. This is the Eibishter's plan. And the Rebbe says, last summer, the 6-day war opens up the Tkufas HaTshuva. Now, the Rebbe's been doing tshuva from the moment he was born. The Rebbe's been doing tshuva from the moment he became a Rebbe. But the Rebbe links the shofar gadol of tshuva, the second shofar gadol, to the 6-day war. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. If we learned the Maimah without learning the Sikha, would we be missing something? The Sikha changes the resonance of the Maimah. The Rebbe wasn't just saying a Maimah. He was saying a Maimah that's depicting what's happening in the world. Shegarmu l'ze'azu eitzakol b'nei Yisrael. It caused a shake by all Yidden. Shemashma'uzami, the significance of this shake is hascholas, his gashmus, the beginning of the actualization of Nevuas, Yeshaya Navi, the prophecy of Yeshaya, or the Shofar Gadol. The second Shofar Gadol was the Shofar Gadol that wakes up Yiddish and Neshamas, the Tshuva, who are so asleep that the Yechida comes out by itself. And the Rebbe explains, B'muroi Seilu, in these events, and Kinderlach, a year and a half ago, Simchas Teda, when this new war started, which people like to call October 7th. It's not October 7th, it's Simchas Teda. Also shook us up. Unfortunately, we don't hear the Rebbe's voice, so everything is much more complicated. But it's an opportunity. You know, I told you, Shalom just died. A shliach of the Rebbe passed away a couple of weeks ago. He wrote a letter 1 week after that war started to Shluchim. He said, remember your job. Your job is to wake Yidden up to tshuva. Now is the time. Our job is Yiddishkeit, not political stuff. Yiddishkeit. Bring a Yid to put on tefillin. Like I told you the story, Chaim Gutnick went into the Rebbe after the 6-day war thinking how wonderful it was. And the Rebbe said to him, what are you trying to blind me out? Go home, get up and shoulder and scream. Everybody keep Shabbos, not once, every week. Everybody keep Tashla Mishpacha, not once for your whole life. Send your children to Jewish schools. The Rebbe said, now they'll listen. But someone's got to speak. And that's what the Rebbe saw the 6-day war as. B'muroi Seilu, with these events, began a new period. In preparing the world, the Jewish people for the Geula, the Mashiach said to Mashiach. Notwithstanding the fact Al kach to the fact, Shenemtsoyim Adayin Kedem Eschalta the Geula. Mashiach has not yet come, and don't make any mistake about it. And the Rebbe is talking about the people who used to say that the modern state of Israel, the modern secular state of Israel is Mashiach, and it's not. When it goes because of our Avedis. Until we fix the Avedis, Esasiba, which is the cause, Yeshnei Adayin HaMesubav, we still have the affection, and Psoim and Daim Agos, we're in Gos, Afilu Be'eres Yisrael, you can live in Yerushalayim and be in a deep and a dark Golos. Still, Nichnas no Tkufa Chadosh, there's a new period. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mitzi Doy, Hashem from his angle. Kol L'chol B'nei Yisrael is calling every Jew, which is Kriya L'kis, it's a divine call. L'neshama L'kis, to the divine soul. Sheyesh Mechalachat Misal, which is in each Jew, that Avilu Ha'evdem V'nidachim, a Jew who so is similar, as Ma'ita Shik says, no association with any other Jews. Last summer, the Eibush got to him, V'hetzliach, and he succeeded, L'zazeya Oisham, to shake them up. Ayadeh Shefer God, with the sounding of the great Shefer. And then, Kinderlach, here comes the hard part. Umamtin lemayne al b'nei Yisrael al kriyasa. He waits the response of the Jewish people to this cry. Ayadeh through this, Shebnei Yisrael mitzidim, the Jews from their side, Yenatzlu as Hayasedidus v'chulu, should utilize this awakening, le'ismas v'sla'akadosh, not to run around and scream anti-Semitism like fools, to scream Shabbos kosher mikvah tefillin. Le'ismasas HaKadosh Baruch, a dedication to the Eibush, to the Chasos, B'kiyim, HaTevu, mitzvahs and strengthening Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe concludes, V'ilu zachinu, if we had merited, V'ayinu menatzim k'teboyes harega shel aziyah. There was a moment, the Rebbe says, that every Jew's heart was awake. If we took advantage of that moment and filled the heart of the Jews when their hearts were awakened with Yiddishkeit, Haya Mashiach B'mayad, Mashiach would have come then. Umeitzi is called B'nei Yisrael me'agos, taking us out of Golos. Says the Rebbe, but we slept to a great misfortune. We did stuff, but not nearly enough, and we were not zeicher. So the charge has been set. The shofar has been sounded, but now we need to take the opportunity to wake up in the Neshamas. L'chein ma'amtem HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of the Eibush waits now. Sheberegas at this moment. Yenatzlu as Hayasedidus, which should utilize the awakening. L'ischazik b'shvilas at mitzvah, strengthen ourselves in Yiddishkeit and strengthen others in Yiddishkeit. But even until Sha'ubo'u v'ishtachvu la'Hashem, which account about HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishalayim, the movement of Ruchni spiritually, the Gam Pipshutin also actually, Adei Mashiach, to change the Mashiach, top of page 216. She'yoitzi oisanu me'hagolos, they should take us out of the golos. V'yaveh yisanu agula shleya b'karav mamash, will bring us to the gula shleya b'karav mamash. Now there's another whole sikha on this topic, which I wish I had the time for. But you got to admit, learning 3 pages plus in a sikha is nice, right? That means Paltiel did a lot of less talking and more teaching. Finally, unbelievable. So the Maimer we just learned has a whole different meaning now. It wasn't Stam Azoy, a Maimer. The Rebbe actually puts a date of the Shefer Gadol Mashiach. And it's 58 years ago. I was 3. It's impossible. I'm not 61. It was 67 was, no, I was 2. Yes, 2 years old. So it was 57 years ago.